My mother and stepfather died last year, tail end of last year, and you know, you go through all these things, probate, that sort of stuff, and my sister-in-law and I have been attempting anyway to clear the house, but every now and again I come across something, I think, what on earth's that? And that was this. I mean, what is that? It took me a few minutes to discover what it was, but I'll tell you at the end of this video. Welcome to Ralph's house.
Welcome to Ralph's house!
After a lot of trial and error, I found the best way to do these is stand them on pound coins. I don't know what those, about 5-6 mil deep, are they? So whatever coin you've got in your country, I guess. And hot melt glue the coin to the bottom of each bumper top, and then hot melt glue that to the inside of the tray. And then start pouring your mould stuff in. This is so satisfying, you know. I'm just getting this mould out, and of course where I've used the hot melt glue to stick down the pound coins, they just start to come away now. Oh, right, here we go. The last bit. There we go. There you are, with the pound coins in. So what I've got to just cut around there with a sharp knife, and then I should be able to pull these out of the mould. I've removed all the bumper tops and the pound coins, and I've filled these up with resin, and not to the top, you noticed, because I did a test earlier on, filled them to the top, and that just left me too much to sand off. So they want to be just starting to creep up the sides of where the pound coin was, and they'll be about right. I've actually used mica powder in these, and 5 of them, I know they don't look it, 5 of them are orange and that one's red. So I shall tip those out later in the video and we'll see how they came out, but I have been busy, like making various colours, trying it out. Yeah, they seem to come out very well indeed, actually. They do need that little bit sanding off the back, but that doesn't take too much. Some are actually easier than others. Depends how deep you go. So that's why I haven't filled these up quite so high. But that one's almost sanded off now, and it just needs the hole tapping in the bottom of it. But what I'm inclined to do, because somebody suggested setting the nut in the resin. Well, from a practical point of view, that's really difficult to do, actually, because you're going to have to time it, aren't you? Otherwise the nut will just sink into the resin, or I make a jig to do it. So what I decided to do is drill the 632 UNC hole in the middle of it, you know, and tap it, and then use a larger drill bit which will take a 632 UNC nut, and then I'll use UV resin to actually set it in the bottom. That's my plan anyway. I've been experimenting with this stuff. Fast, note that it says fast, right? Fast cast polyurethane casting resin, Zencast P2. I thought I'd give this a try. It's a 1-to-1 mix, and so I put some in a cup, equal amounts in another cup, tipped the two in together, stirred in a bit of green colouring, and honestly, within a minute it went foamed up like that, and that's solid. I couldn't even get the stirring spoon out of it. Sooner or later you come down to the fine details, don't you? This box isn't mine. Well, it is now, but it used to belong to my dad, and he's never failed to surprise me. And when I actually moved into this house, which belonged to my dad, he did stash a lot of odds and ends, you know, and I was loath to. It would have been so easy, wouldn't it, just to throw everything away and start afresh. But there were various things, and I thought, well, I don't exactly know what they are, so I will hang on to those. And I'm glad I did, because there was this tub of nuts, and they are all UNC coarse thread nuts, which are not the sort of thing that you find easily. And indeed, that screw fits that. I imagine my Rouse House channel has become a bit of a mecca for Genco Pinball owners. Yeah, well, you can call it Genco if you like. Apparently it's Genco. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention this. If you own a Genco or Genco, you're going to need these. This is a 632 UNC die. And there's the tap to go with it. Tiny little thing. The reason you're going to need them is because nearly all the threads on those machines, that's what they are. You're going to need those. US threads, used widely in the agricultural industry apparently, because they're quite coarse threads. But you're definitely going to need those. Right, while I've got 5 minutes, I thought I'll talk about these bumper tops, or bumper caps, I think some people call them. This is one of the original ones. Not sort of sure what it's made out of. As I say, it could be Bakelite. But the downside of these, or its weak point if you like, they're meant to accept, I've got some examples here, some UNC bolts 632. That's what you need to look at, 6 and the number 32, and you'll find them UNC bolts, which is an American thread. The problem with them is, with bumper caps, periodically you do have to unscrew them and maintain the contacts underneath, otherwise the bumper doesn't work. But because it's plastic, after a while the thread starts to wear in it. Anyway, as you know, I've been casting. So that's the original, that's the newer one, which as you see is slightly lighter, which seems about right, I think. It's not a bad copy at all. This is made out of resin. But as I said, what I wanted to do was put some kind of captive nut in it. And I actually did that. I can't actually put my hand on it right now, but basically, with the new one, what you do is drill a big enough hole to accept a 632 nut, and then using UV resin, UV fast setting resin, takes about, I don't know, 30 seconds, something like that, around the nut, and it holds it, and it held it really well. I couldn't fault it, other than the fact that, you know, I had to drill that slightly bigger hole for the nut. And the other thing is you need space the other side of the nut, so that, you know, once the bolt goes through it, there's enough space the other side. As much as you can afford to anyway. So what I did, I bought a pack of these. These are brass inserts, and they're described as, if you want to find them on eBay, because they've got that 632 thread through them. Can you see they're knurled in 2 directions? I think you can just about make them out. Yeah. They're called brass threaded heat set screw inserts, used in 3D printing. Say 632. I've got 20 of them for about 7 or 8 quid, which I thought was reasonable. So I drilled a hole a little bit larger than that. Found what I can't remember the size of the drill bit now, and I ended up with that. And now I've got a brass insert with the thread in it. As I say, you do need to leave space the other side of it. But I found using an electric drill a bit too coarse. I found much better to actually get the drill bit in a tool that will hold them. You know, for very tiny drill bits, you can get a sort of like a handle basically with a small chuck on it, and just did them by hand. That's how I did it. And put the insert in, made sure it sat flush with the surface, and then just made sure the outside was all filled in with UV resin. Just exposed it to a UV light, I'm just grabbing for it. Probably familiar with these things. Doing ladies' nails. Well, not necessarily ladies, all sorts. Yeah, with the UV light in it, that cured it very quickly. These are really cheap, you know, about 3 or 4 quid. Great things. And the UV resin, obviously the rest of the resin, well, it's about really 24 hours before you can handle it, and I would say at least 2 days to be on the safe side. And even then it doesn't really harden until at least a week or more. So bear that in mind, they do stay soft. So if you are going to work it, sometimes it's easier to work in the period when it's at its softest. I'm going to sand this down a little bit smoother on the bottom, although it'll do quite well. But these screw brilliantly, they go right down and they clamp tight. And it's important that the insert sits level, or even proud of the surface if you like, but sits at least level and not below the surface. Otherwise when you screw it on, it will just pull the insert out, if you see what I mean. You need the outside of the bumper top to ground out, you see. But anyway, that was what I came up with. It seemed just too difficult to put an insert in during the casting stage. Would have been an ideal scenario, but it was easy to do it in post-production, if you like. I would say that a regular 632 nut will do the job fine, and actually probably more secure, although this does seem to have worked. And because of that knurling on it, it gives it something to, you know, bite onto using the UV resin. But there you go. At least now I can remove that as many times as I like, and it's not going to be a problem reattaching it. So I think in terms of, you know, a replica, that's come out really, really well. Right at the beginning of this video, I asked you what you thought that might be. It's not easy, is it? What could that be? This thing seems sort of fixed at both ends. What would you use that for? I'll tell you, it was made by a company called J. Radbourne and Sons from Birmingham. It says made in England, but actually it was made in Birmingham. And this dates back to the early 1940s. And it was used by engineers. I'll tell you what it was used for. Now watch this. It's a spirit level. And that's rather nice because you can turn it and it protects the glass vial in it, obviously. But what this was used for was when you're setting up engineering equipment, trying to get the bed or the table, like a circular saw or a lathe or something like that, you'd use one of these. And look, and it's got these tiny little grub screws in the side. So you could actually calibrate it, well, as long as you knew something that was dead level, and then match this to that. But yeah, a very, very useful engineering tool. Beautifully made. Not something you'd find today. Thanks for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.